vibration of creation, the cosmic hum. The eternal cyclic rhythm of earth, moon, and sun. Earth song is the ancient conversation between shore and sea. The love ballad between flower and bee. Earth song is the melody of mountains that rise and fall.
Yeah, and I am thrilled to be back with another interview in Embody the Empress, where we're looking at how to blossom and flourish in harmony with the natural world. Today, I am so thrilled to introduce you to Louise Cridland. Louise is a holistic psychologist and guide for women to trust their inner wisdom and step into bold, unapologetic self expression. There are so many things about this conversation that I'm excited to dive into. But what I want to do first is just do this lovely trip back in time that I've been doing with all of our speakers, because I love looking at the girl that you were as you were preparing to launch yourself into womanhood, Louise. So, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. When you think about yourself in that pocket of time from sort of 14 to 21, when we're really collecting the beliefs that we have about ourselves and our potential in the world and the things that we're going to be doing as we launch ourselves into womanhood, just intuitively, wherever feels like the age to begin, I'd love to get a sense of who you were then, the beliefs that you had about yourself, and the first steps that you took as you were launching yourself into the adult world.
It's such a great question. And for me, the story and the beliefs that were there from 14 and then before going out into the world actually started much earlier. And it started about 6 years old. And I think I've told you that story around sitting in a classroom where you've got all your little friends around you and there's crayons and there's paper, and I'm sitting on those little red chairs that you find in those tiny classrooms, and we're all sitting around and we're drawing. We've been asked to draw something. And then I feel this big looming presence behind me, and his name was Mr. Marks, and he was a relief teacher. And he was scary. Even if I met him today, he would be scary. And so he was terrifying as a 6-year-old. But I remember him saying to me, he looked at what I had drawn and he said, "Why did you waste that piece of paper?" And although this doesn't seem massive, this was massive
Yeah.
to a 6-year-old. And it really was the beginning of me feeling like when I expressed myself creatively or however, that it was wrong or it didn't fit the mold. And so from that point, I also started to get this sense from school that I wasn't creative. So I wasn't creative, and when I expressed myself, it wasn't right and it didn't fit the mold. And so that is what left me. And that is what began my womanhood and into the world of which I'm sure we're going to talk about next.
These stories just feel like I don't know what the expression is, but having had a very similar experience with drawing a snowman and looking at the girls next to me, and she had, I still remember, Debbie Griffiths, if she ever happens to watch this, she was drawing these beautiful snowflakes on hers, and I was like, oh, I want to have a go at that, and got so carried away. And the teacher's feedback was just so damning about what I'd done that, yeah, that was the beginning of the end of my belief that I was creative in any way. And it wasn't until my children started school in a very different environment in a Steiner school that I started to connect with being creative again. So it's amazing, these little experiences. And I'm sure as a psychologist, you've learned a lot about this in a much deeper way. But these little experiences that can scar some people potentially forever if they don't come across somebody that helps them change the story.
Mm.
So as you left school, what did you imagine you would be doing? Did you have that sense that you were going straight into psychology, or was there a roundabout route that got you there?
Yes and no. I am one of those frustrating people that I always knew I wanted to be in psychology, but I didn't even know what it meant. So it was really an intuitive pull from a young age. There was a roundabout way of where I've got to where I am, being truly fulfilled in the psychology that I want to work in.
Yeah.
But so I entered university because I thought I should, and I studied law as well because I thought I should. Absolutely hated that and course corrected, thankfully, and just studied psychology. But after my degree, I just followed a traditional career path because that's what I thought I needed to do to get a secure job, to make money,
Yeah.
to keep climbing, and really setting goals with my mind. That was how I lived my life for many, many years.
Yeah. I think I wish I could have a tally of how many people I have interviewed that have left school and started law and been
Yeah.
quietly horrified and changed tack. It's one of
Yeah.
those things, I think,
Yeah.
for those, which wasn't me, for those that get these amazing marks at school, it's like medicine or law or maybe
Yeah.
engineering, or, like, it's
Yeah.
like, there's like this funnel because of the marks you get as opposed to
Yeah.
what is a real soul calling. But it's
Yeah.
interesting to hear that again.
Yeah.
So I know that, like, a big part of your story is this unconventional approach to what you do. You've been into the institution of university, and you've learned something, but there was another path that you took with what you learned. So perhaps,
Yeah. And
yeah.
sorry, what was that?
Yeah, so if we can dive in there, or if there's
Sure.
if there's a piece in your story after that that you feel like is the starting point, I'd love to hear it.
Sure. So I was working in corporate wellness and psychology for a number of years. And really, when I was honest with myself, well, I just knew from an early on that I didn't think healing came from a clinical white room. Or in an organization for that matter, and commuting my life away. So there were all these things, these signs that this way of working, this way of living was really just not the way I wanted to live. And so I didn't really know what to do. I tried to go out on my own, and I thought, okay, well, anxiety, it's something I've been through. It's something quite traditional in psychology. I'll just follow down that path and focus on that. But what I noticed is, one, I didn't want to, when I talked about what I did, I wasn't proud. I wasn't excited. And two, I feel like I kept hitting roadblocks. Things didn't align. And I have heard so many people talk about synchronicities happen and when you're aligned and all of these things just flow. And I know there's hard work involved, but I definitely hadn't felt any of that.
Yeah.
And so it really started to take the last few years for me to be honest with what really lit me up in psychology, and also bringing in my personal experience. So by the time I was 30 and had a really significant relationship breakdown, I remember sitting in my room in my parents' house. I'd moved back there, looking at all my childhood possessions in this room and realizing that I had been running from the pain that was inside of me. And I was trying to cover it up with a good job, being ambitious and ticking all the boxes. And I realized I wasn't happy, and I didn't want to look to a man or a relationship to make me happy. And so that was the turning point of me starting to go in the direction of where I am now.
I think it's really interesting. And it's something that's sort of only recently, when all the pieces of the puzzle start to come together in your mind with life experiences. And I talk about distractions when there's things that we don't want to look at or don't want to acknowledge or don't want to feel. It's easy to think about the obvious distractions of food and screens and like being busy, working hard, but relationships can also be another distraction. And it's interesting when I think about wanting to avoid my life and being alone with myself, I just bounced from relationship to relationship. Like I left school and I was in a 5-year relationship, and then a 7-year relationship, and then I got married and it was another 7-year relationship, and then that ended, and I had a 7-year break after that. And it was in that time on my own, the willingness to be on my own, that I actually got to know myself. And so I'm interested in how your story is going to unfold with this, but I'm feeling like I'm hearing that as well. It's that time on your own.
Yes, I mean, relationships were a band-aid for me. They helped me feel good about myself and run from what was actually going on inside. And that was the beginning where I had a period of being on my own. And instead of running, which we're taught to avoid, distract, do anything you can to not feel the negative emotions and go towards the positive, I dove deep into meditation, and I studied with spiritual teachers and a shaman overseas, and I did anything you could think of in terms of alternative healing. And all of these things were turning me back into my body, my breath, and helping me face versus avoid what was going on.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Meditation, breath work. What else did you mention?
I didn't actually say that, but yes, breath work.
Oh, I thought you said breathing, or maybe you said it.
Well, breathing. Yes, it wasn't breath work. That's kind of become a bit more trendy now, but it was breath work.
Yeah.
Breath work. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like I know a lot of women who are in, the having lost partners, relationship breakdown, and then there's this significant period of grief and aloneness and feeling like that's almost going to be an inevitable. And so what the things are that make the difference. So I'm very deliberately trying to collect these from you, the experiences that you've seen for yourself, but also in clients. And it is stillness and quiet and being with yourself.
If you want to simplify everything, that is it.
Yeah.
And breath. Yeah. Yeah. And that period, there was a lot of anxiety that I had not been facing, and I was grieving deeply. And to get the wisdom and to transform from that grief, you have to go into it. But the beautiful thing is it doesn't last. Nothing can last. It may shift, it may look different. But if you've never been used to sitting with yourself, it can feel so scary. And there's a good reason why we don't do it, because there can be pain there. But the person that we are all craving to become, and I think so many of us are yearning for more, it actually starts with facing our emotions and starting to realize that you can actually cope with anything that life throws you when you start to learn to sit with the uncomfortable.
Yeah. And then the other bit that you just mentioned is having the vision of where you're going.
Yes.
There's got to be that next step of like, okay, this is where I am, and I process this, but then where am I going afterwards? So what was your going to from that place? What was your vision?
It's interesting. I don't think I had one. My vision was to stop feeling the way that I was. And it was only in time that I went through this process of feeling a lot of stuff that I had been bottling up, that I was able to then create room and to allow myself to dream again. And realize that I hadn't been letting myself dream. I had, in terms of my mind and what society was expecting of me, but not what was really truly in my heart.
Yeah.
So for some people, if you can hold that vision while you're going through the tough emotions, amazing. But to the people who may not have access to that, that's okay too, because it comes.
Yeah.
Will come. Yeah.
So what was the next step?
So the next step was really launching into this whole idea of how can we live unconventionally? How can we live led by our heart and not our minds? How can we listen to our intuition, our inner guidance, trust our decisions, trust that gut instinct? And that is how I want to use psychology. And I've brought in my spiritual training and what that's done for me and my connection to nature, and pair that with the traditional psychology. That is where my story then went to.
Yeah.
And it was from that place I started to notice the synchronicities that I had heard about. Do you want me to go into the most recent example of?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so this is very fresh, and so it's just happened in the last few weeks, and me processing this whole experience it's really led me to realize that so many of us women, mothers in particular, put everyone else first, and we don't actually allow ourselves to dream. We think about everyone else, and then maybe we can dream, we can make some room.
Yeah.
So I'll take you back to about a year ago. I don't know if any of the listeners know Byron Bay, but I was sitting on the grass by the ocean. It was a perfect summer's night. It was balmy. I was looking at the clear blue ocean, so calming. And then there was this busker, and all his lyrics were about chasing his dreams and doing something different to what his friends were doing currently.
Yeah.
And I remember in that moment feeling that sense of being moved. And it was as if my heart was calling me to Byron Bay, 8 hours away from where I was currently living. And so I felt that so strongly. And yes, some people might go, oh, well, you're on holiday and, you feel that sort of thing on holiday and, that's not reality. So anyway, I left it there. It was a beautiful experience, and I went back to normal life in Sydney, living in a big city. I'd been desperate to leave Sydney for a long time and get closer to nature, but it just didn't seem like a reality. Since having little kids, my partner has been the sole provider. So financially, I felt there was a power imbalance, and that I had to support his work because his work was supporting us. And so I started to have these difficult conversations of, my heart is telling me I need to be somewhere else. And I want the three of you, my partner and my two kids, to come with me. And that then went into a process of about 6 months and then a year. Yeah. And so initially he found that quite difficult, and then I felt bad because I would be asking him to have some time away from us. It would put strain on him. He'd be commuting more. So I left it. I said, okay. I retreated. I went, yeah, okay, you're right. I don't want to put that on you. Let's just think about it as a 5 to 10 year plan. And so life carried on. And the only way I can describe it is that my soul dimmed. In that moment of going, okay, suck it in. Okay, I express myself. We can't get there. Okay, I'll just push it. I'll push it down again. And so life just carries on because we're all busy and I've got kids. And so I carried on. And then it was early this year. So in about January, I came back up to Byron Bay and I got that sense again, that feeling. You can't logically describe it. It's a feeling. And so I started the conversations again with my partner. Very difficult conversations. And it was a very difficult time for us. And a lot of people talk about manifestation and creating what we want in our lives. And I've heard one person talk about it in terms of authenticity. And I was like, yeah, okay, I get that. But not until this happened. I was being so real to the point where I felt like I could not carry on my life in Sydney as it was. And that was really hard for my partner to hear. And this move on paper doesn't make sense. It's costing us more. It's illogical. We were comfortable down there. My partner has to sacrifice a lot to do this. And sometimes through that process, I felt selfish and it felt wrong. And I guess why I wanted to share this to you, we are in Byron Bay now, and I feel that we are meant to be here for a time. I don't know how long, but for a time. And I wanted to share this because for so long, I was putting my kids and my partner first.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was leading to what I said, my soul dimming and me not following that dream. And so to the people who are in this impossible situation where they can't see how they can make that dream happen, it can, but you've just got to start to allow yourself to dream and dream big.
I know personally that this is such a massive topic and it is such a challenge to try and find the balance in this. And I know that my story has always been, I have a level of self-leadership and I make things happen around me that I want to a great degree, but I also know that I've got a long habit of ensuring that everybody else is sorted, and I will put myself at the bottom of the list when it comes to my husband and children. And it is very, very challenging. And I'm sitting right in this experience right at the moment, not living where I want to live. And I've been here for many years now, and it's never been home. And you said it's hard to articulate what that feeling is. For me, when I'm in the mountains, in the country, inland, my soul literally settles. It's like this feeling of, like when I'm not in the country, when I'm not surrounded where I can see for miles with green rolling hills and mountains and rivers, and it's almost like a low grade agitation that's just like this thing. And the way that I manage that is to have my own space, like I create these kind of bubbles around me waiting. And then when I'm inland, during COVID, my third child and I used to get in the car and, we had this 5K radius thing here. And we would sneak and I would just go and sit where I could look out. It was the only way. And it's not looking at the ocean for me.
Yeah.
It's looking at green grass, rolling hills, cows, nature. And, in line with Embody the Empress, everything that we're talking about here is living in harmony with the natural world. And when I live in suburbia, it feels like there's no harmony. It creates a literal agitation in my body. But changing us right now, all of us, would be a monumental thing. And yet I'm the one that's sacrificing so that everybody else is sorted. I'm not sure. I have absolute and utter love for your story and respect for your courage and your boldness and your stand for yourself in your life. I love that you've given me this example and our audience this example, because I think it can show up in so many ways. It might be the living place, or it might be work, or it might be staying in a relationship that's not working just for the kids, or there's so many ways that it shows up that we self-sacrifice. That is not necessarily for the highest good of all. I'm sure in your family you would see, as would so many of our audience, when mum's thriving, everybody thrives. When mum's not thriving, it affects everybody. So it's not for the highest good of all.
No, and I think part of this for me has been trusting that what is good for me for now will be good for my family unit in different ways, for sure. But it's trusting that if you do feel, particularly if you feel like you're the rock of the family unit, if you keep dimming your soul. I also come back to if you're a parent, but it doesn't have to be if you're a parent, but if you want your children to chase their dreams, to know that they can create the life they want, then we have to do it. We have to model that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a powerful message. I talk about, when I look back over my life, the red flags that I ignored. The red flags that I know, when I look back in hindsight, it was like, the logical brain takes over the gut knowing. That's the red flag. And whenever I followed my gut knowing, and often it's been at times when it made no logical sense whatsoever. As a single mother with 4 children, I bought a flower farm, and like the level of responsibility just blew the mind of most people around me. I was like, I just know. It makes no sense. I know, but I just know. And it was the best decision ever.
Yeah.
So when you're talking to people about that gut knowing, the intuition is what we're talking about, feminine intuition versus the logical mind. It's interesting as I talk about that, there's another piece to this that I think when you talk about, living an unconventional life, the conventional life that we've all been encouraged and convinced to live is that you go to school, you go to university, you get married, you follow the pharmaceutical companies' guidelines in medications that we take and vaccines, and there's religion, and you follow the dogma of a church. There's all these systems and institutions that I believe were set up initially with the absolute best of intentions, but they've become just that, institutions that are governed often by not the highest good of all, and certainly not governed to teach us to trust ourselves first. It's not about following our own intuition. It's about following a set of guidelines to fit into the box. So when you talk about living an unconventional life, having been to university, having, ticked a lot of those boxes, what is the breakthrough or the breakaway or maybe the merging of the two in a way that works for you?
Well, I would never have studied at university that you could be a psychologist helping people to strengthen their intuition so that they can create whatever it is that they want to create. So an unconventional life doesn't mean you're a hippie on a farm unless you want that.
Yeah.
It's unconventional to you and to what you feel is expected of you. And so I'm so grateful for where I've been, because I feel like I am here to guide and to walk alongside people who have been along similar roads where your head has been entrenched in the conventional life, but you have this knowing. And you speak about this agitation, and that is what I start with my clients is, how can you listen to your emotions and use them as tools, because they are the gateway to that inner knowing.
Yeah. It's such a massive part of why I do these interviews and in capturing people's stories, because my love is learning from people who have lived what they teach. I actually don't have any interest in going to somebody that's learned something in a university but has never lived it and then tries to teach it. And I remember there were different times when, my one or two of my children needed to see somebody for extra support. Mum's not always the best person to support. And seeing these young psychologists and counselors that are obviously just out of uni with next to no lived experience, and I could just hear in the way that they talk that it's very textbook, and there's no soul in it, there's no essence in it, there's no lived wisdom in it. And so to learn from people who have lived what they teach, this is the sitting at the feet of our mothers and our aunts and our grandmothers and the wise women in our community. And so for you to have taken, yes, the teachings and combined it with your lived experience, I think is the ultimate gold. This is where true support happens. This is where true wisdom gets shared, and where we really learn things. Yeah, it's very
Thank
powerful.
you. Thank you. I mean, it's a gift. I feel very blessed to be working in the way that I'm working with people. And again, I want this for everyone. I want everyone to feel absolutely blessed about the work that they do and how they creatively contribute to our community and to our children and to our loved ones. And so I love working with people in this space. It's truly transformative.
Yeah. What do you think makes people stop dreaming?
Well, if you think back to my story at the very beginning about being 6 and being told that my artwork was not good enough, it can start there. And then our minds start to look for confirming evidence of that as we go throughout life. And we're also not really taught, I think it's getting better these days, but we're not taught in schools to listen to our emotions and listen to our gut knowing. And so what happens is school is very much focused on using your mind, English, maths, all the rest of it. And so we come out of school and then go into university or whatever it might be, we are living solely from our heads. Maybe there'll be a touch of, oh yeah, that doesn't feel right, or I didn't get a good feeling about that. But mostly we're setting goals from our minds. And we don't even realize, I know I didn't, that I was doing that. I didn't realize I could dream about doing the work that I'm now doing.
Yeah.
And so then there's societal pressure, there's family, there's time constraints, there's thinking that we've got all these responsibilities. So all of these things limit our ability to be creative and really look and dream expansively.
Yeah. Everything that is created starts in our imagination, and if we're not dreaming, there's nothing to create, whether it's the chair we're sitting on or the computer we're using or the earrings that I'm wearing. All of it started in somebody's imagination. All of it was somebody sitting looking out the window or scribbling on a piece of paper or whatever it was. And it's like, I wonder if, or imagine if, or if I put this here or did that there or use this jewel, or I'm thinking Temple of the Sun in Byron Bay. It's one of my
yeah.
It's like, thank goodness for the dreamers. Thank goodness for the people that are playing in their imagination, because that's how these things get created. That's how Embody the Empress came about, because I was playing with my tarot cards and there was the Empress, and it's like the Empress is just, she's everything that I live and breathe by. And so this is how this came about. And so if we don't have that time to dream and play in our imagination and say, well, what if I moved to Byron Bay and packed us all up?
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. And one of the questions I'm going to ask everyone after we finish this segment is really touching on what we've just spoken about there, and then how do we start to dream again?
Yes. Well, I'm all for diving into that. Is there anything, before we move into your experience, is there anything that I haven't asked, anything that you want to share that you feel I've missed or would be a great thing to share before we go into your experience? Is there anything?
I don't think so. I think we've covered all the main parts.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I am going to go off screen and we'll get you set up.
Yeah. I'm really excited about this experience that hopefully I can offer you all. And what we are going to do, we're going to do about a 10 to 15 minute meditation visualization. And then we're going to go through some reflection questions. So you can actually stop and start this part, but if you've got a journal, you've got a pen that you can write things down, that would be amazing to go and get that now. And the purpose of the visualization is really to do what we've been speaking about, to drop you back into your heart, out of your head, so that you can allow yourself to answer these questions from your heart, from your soul. And so that is what we'll do. And when we go through the questions, you can stop the recording and start it again when you finish answering the questions. So before we get stuck into the hard-hitting questions, I really hope that this lands with those of you who know that there is more for you. And that may not be a thought, it might just be a feeling, a sense, but perhaps you aren't exactly where you want to be right now. So I hope that this experience helps you go through this time that you find yourself in. Okay, so take a comfortable seat. You can lie down as well. If you're sitting up or if you're lying down, I just want you to have your spine erect but comfortable, just so we can allow your breathing to go deep into your diaphragm. Closing your eyes if that feels okay, if not, just averting your gaze so you're not looking at me or anything in particular. And we're starting to just bring our awareness from the outside, from this conversation, and tuning inward. You might notice some sounds. Just let those sounds happen in the distance and come back to this body. This body of yours that breathes, that holds so much beauty and love and wisdom. And so just be here now. Let the to-do list, the responsibilities, time, let yourself just pause. And as we pause, can you notice what your breathing is doing? I don't want you to try and manipulate or change it in any way. Just simply bring your awareness to your breath. The rise and fall as you inhale and exhale. And as you start to tune inwards, you can always come back to your breath through this visualization. And we don't want to force it. Just use your imagination. Nothing is wrong here. So as you use your imagination, I want you to picture a beautiful road, a dirt road that you would find in the country. There'll be some stones, some rocks, maybe even some holes. But just notice this road and that you are starting to walk down this road. As you look around, you notice these beautiful big trees lining the road. They're so big and beautiful that they create some shade in between the streams of light from the sun. So you notice as you're walking, sometimes you feel cool, and sometimes you feel warmer from the sun through the leaves. And if you listen, you can hear the wind gently rustling the leaves in these big, beautiful trees. And as you're walking, you notice something coming up on your left, something small, and you turn around and you see younger you, about 4 to 7. She is bounding up. She's not walking, she's running. She's skipping. Her eyes are darting around. Her face is completely lit up to see you. She's excited. She's playful. She's laughing. And let's say she's roughly around 5, but whatever age feels natural or that you're called to. This younger self, you ask her, will she walk with you for a bit? She says yes. She's excited. She doesn't know what's ahead. And so you hold her hand. You feel her little warm hand in your hand. You feel her innocence, her smallness, her vulnerability. And she might have had some tough experiences. And yet she's still full of light and energy and innocence, playfulness. She has so much love, joy, and anything is possible in her world. As you're holding that little hand and you're walking together, you can feel all of those qualities as part of you. You can feel her vibrancy, her energy for life. And let anything arise that needs to arise. You could be feeling into these qualities. There may be sadness, there may be tears, there may be anger. Whatever needs to arise, let it be. As you're walking with this little, beautiful little girl, can you ask her something? Can you ask her what you need to know right now? What do you need to learn from her eyes, her wisdom? Sensing into her energy and her qualities and the immense life force that she has in such a little physical form. Let her say anything else. And if you're ready, we will keep walking with her just for a moment, noticing her little hand again in yours, As you walk down that road, you're in touch with those qualities that she represents. And then you see something to your right. You look around, and this person is walking a bit slower. She's about 90 years old. She's an older version of you. Her hair is beautifully grey and white. The look in her eyes is one of life, of lived experience, of wisdom. She's grounded. And as she comes closer, you ask to hold her hand. She feels a little cooler than your younger self. Her skin feels a little bit more fragile, but her hand feels so grounded and present. You ask her to walk alongside you for a time. You feel her strength. You feel her deep, knowing wisdom. Her courage. And as you look into her eyes, they are full of life force. Even if her physical form has changed, she's just as alive and vibrant as the younger you. Can you ask her now, what do you need to learn from her? What would she tell you about your current situation right now? You feel all those qualities present within her. And now I want you to notice the two hands that you are holding as you walk down this road. On the left, you have this playfulness, this innocence, this vibrancy, this energy. And on the right, you have wisdom, groundedness, courage, love. I want you to imagine there's no right or wrong. Just imagine holding both of those hands and both of those qualities, all of those qualities in your hands, in your body. So you are channeling the younger you, the older you, and your current self. You're allowing yourself to expand and hold all of these capacities. Notice any visions, any images, any feelings, any senses. As you expand into your younger, your older, your current self. And now expand as if you're expanding into this huge cloud or bubble or spaciousness, allowing all three of you to be one. Take a breath in, breathing deeply, all of these energies, anything that is arising. And if it feels comfortable, hand on your heart, hand on your stomach, connecting to this body. You may ask if your heart or your soul has any message, or simply sitting with the energies and channeling them all into your heart space. It's as if you are breathing through your heart space. As we take one more breath here, thank your younger and older self. Ask them if they would like to walk back to where they came, or would they like to journey within you? Whatever feels natural. Coming back to your body, your heart. And if you are ready, and only if you are ready, you can place your hands on your legs or your hands touching the other hand and squeezing your legs, anything to slowly bring you back into this physical body. And when you are ready, slowly open your eyes. You may like to move, roll your shoulders, take any movements or stretches just to come back into this physical form. We don't want to wake ourselves up too much, though. We want to stay in this beautiful meditative state as I ask you these questions. We are talking to your heart, to your soul. So when you are ready, get your journal, your pen. I want you to free write when I ask this question. Don't try and filter. Don't try and write it beautifully. I just want you to free write with whatever comes out. The first question: how are you settling in your life right now? You're staying in a situation that your heart knows isn't right. What might you be avoiding facing right now? You can hit the pause button to respond. And the second question: what are you saying yes to that you need to be saying no to? You can think relationships, career, where you're living, anything that comes up. You can stop and start this at any time. The third question: what are you saying no to that you need to be saying yes to? And This could be scary. It could be illogical. It could be against society's norms, against your family's responsibilities. So what are you saying no to that you need to be saying yes to? And the fourth question, what are you not claiming in your life? How are you letting your dreams slip by? Because of timing, because of compromising, responsibilities, families, limiting beliefs. What are you not claiming in your life? And the fifth question, how are you playing small in the micro moments of your life? How do you introduce yourself? How do you talk about your dreams, your aspirations? How do you talk about your accomplishments, what you've done? And how do you take compliments? So how are you playing small in your day-to-day life right now? And the sixth question, how do you make decisions? Do you use your head? Do you use a pros and cons list? Or do you tune into your body's signals? And if you do, what do you notice? What do you notice about your body telling you about life, about your dreams, about where you are at right now? What signals is your body giving you? And the final question. This is going to be hard, but I want you to really single focusedly answer this honestly. If you are only thinking about you right now, only you, no one else, and what you wanted wasn't bad, it wasn't wrong, it wasn't selfish, what would you want? What would you do? What would you change? I hope those questions will get you to go deep, help you be honest, because we compromise so much and we accommodate, and we have to hold ourselves accountable if our life is not exactly how we want it right now, in the most loving, compassionate way. And this last question, this is your starting place to really get clear on what you want. It doesn't have to mean you have to make all of those changes or do all of those things. If you think back to my Byron Bay example, it took a year for this to eventuate. But we have to start with, what do I want if I don't have kids, if I don't have a partner, if my job isn't there, or money or time are not issues, what do I want? And you have to start there as your path.
Mm. So much food for thought. That was amazing. You know, I did a leadership training in 2019, and you know, one of the big big takeaways from that. And when I talk about leadership, I talk about self-leadership first. And when we learn to lead ourselves, we can lead others. But it's the concept of personal responsibility. And the only person we're 100% responsible for is ourselves, for our own health and happiness. And having that awareness tied in with the idea that we're really the victim of nothing. You know, we're creating everything in some capacity through our thoughts, words, and deeds. The choices that we make, all of those things. When you tie those together, it's, you know, like that's the center of everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's the you know, if they taught that in school, if I had have known that when my kids were little and gave them that as a guidepost in
Yeah.
their lives, it's life-changing.
Yeah, and I think being a empathic, loving partner, wife, mother, sister, daughter, we can pretend that we're, well, not pretend, we can do all of the things to keep everyone happy because we love them. We love them so much. But we can be lying to ourselves at the same time that, or sacrificing is a better word that you said. We can also be sacrificing ourselves while we're doing all of those things. And I'm definitely not saying run away from your family, although I'm sure we all feel like that at some point. I'm not saying drop all your family commitments. You can actually find a way. And it starts with really authentic conversations with whoever is in your life and bold decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. How can we make this a win-win for both?
Yes, yes, yes.
I know you've got a lovely gift for our audience. Did you want to take a minute to let them know what that is?
Yes. So this gift is very related to what we've been talking about, and it's starting to get you to tune into your intuition. Wherever you are on that road, you may be feeling like you're very intuitive, or you just feel like it's a bit hit and miss, or you can't hear it at all. And so this is a very practical guide around how can you strengthen your intuition? How can you get used to what's my head voice and what's my heart voice? So you can really start to lead and make decisions from a place from your heart. So you're not second guessing yourself anymore, and you're really trusting your intuition and you're trusting your decisions so that you can really create that life that you desire and that you deserve and live in the fullest expression of who you are, however that looks.
I wish every girl had this before they chose their relationships first.
Yes.
You know, I think about my relationship and my first marriage and the thousand red flags that I ignored because it just felt like the logical next step was to get married and the logical next step was to do this. And I just ignored 1,000 red flags along the way. And I think our stories would just evolve so differently if we had this connection to self-trust and intuition from the get-go. Anyway, that's perhaps my great mission. If it was one thing, it'd be to get that into the hands of all mothers, young mothers, new mothers everywhere. It's such an amazing thing.
And schools. It's
Schools.
going to be in schools one day. I can promise you that.
Yeah, but we need the teachers to understand the depth of the meaning behind it before they teach it as well.
Yes.
This is the ripple effect.
They have to live it, don't they? They have to live it, have lived it.
Mm. There's another whole conversation.
Yes.
So, if I was to ask your intuition, just whatever comes to mind, where are you and what are you doing when you have that beautiful sense of complete inner calm, joy, and harmony with the natural world?
Mm. Would you like me to paint a picture or
Oh, yes.
a couple of pictures with that actually?
Yeah.
And I feel like there was this example of this time being in connection with the natural world. And I think I've mentioned to you before, it was after a cacao breathwork ceremony. And I went with my best friend and we went to the ocean and we went for a swim afterwards. And I dove into the ocean.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my best friend about what do I want to call in. And I said, I want to live an unconventional life full of passion and inspiration and creativity. And that was one of those moments where that's my intuitive calling, to be in that place, to be with my sisters.
Yep.
Yes. And I could list many more, but I'll leave it at with that vision.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And, you know, a couple of days after your interview goes out, I've got the most beautiful, divine woman, Gloria, who's coming in and she's doing a cacao ceremony with everyone. So,
Oh,
kind of fun.
beautiful, beautiful. Amazing.
You mentioned that.
Amazing.
It couldn't be more perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It's been incredibly insightful and valuable. And yeah, it's left me with that exciting feeling of, yeah, I'm looking forward to answering these questions. I love being given these kind of questions by other people. It gives it a different feel to always doing it yourself. So thank you so much for that. Thank you for being with us and sharing your story, your gift, your wisdom. It's been an absolute delight.
Thank you so much, Edwina. I'd love to share the story of how this interview finally happened, but I'll leave that to another time. So it feels like a true blessing that this has eventuated and in the divine timing that it has. And thank you for holding this incredible space for women. And I really feel like I've been living the Empress and stepping into that power just in the last few weeks.
Yeah.
So this is such a beautiful space for everyone. So thank you so much for allowing me to contribute.
It's a story of divine timing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, beautiful souls, that is it from me for another interview in Embody the Empress. And I look forward to seeing you again soon. So much love. And bye for now.